and welcome to our presentation, which is a case study on talent development's strategic role in building capacity to lead through change and crisis. I'm Dr. Barbara Trautlein, principal and founder of Change Catalyst, which is a change management and leadership development consultancy. And also, we are an ATD approved training provider. I'm thrilled to be here and also to be able to sponsor the conference and also to speak to the ATD Chicagoland chapter in general, because when my book, Change Intelligence, was published back in 2013, a leader from this chapter was one of the first people to find it and invited me to speak for the chapter, which I did in July of 2013. So it's great to be back and to be able to share this information with all of you. And even more exciting to do so with Anita Countryman of Rock Valley Credit Union. So Anita, would you like to say hi too?
Hi, ATD Chicago. It's a pleasure to be here. I am looking forward to sharing with you the great work we did with Barbara. I have 25 years experience in credit union land, most of it in HR and training and development. And so implementing these key strategic initiatives with the tools of Barbara was really a big story for us. So I'm so excited to share this learning opportunity. Thank you for inviting me, Barbara, and ATD of Chicago.
Yay, okay, let's rock and roll. Sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Anita. So what we're going to cover today is, first of all, what it means to build change leadership capability and why that matters. I created the specific approach to building change leadership capability that we're going to explore today, the CQ system for developing change intelligence, during the global financial meltdown of 2009. In order to needing to invent tools to help myself and my clients through that time of massive disruption and fear. By that time, I already had 20 years of experience in change management and leadership development. I actually started my company in 1989. And I knew that so many of us in the first 20 years of my career, we were highly experienced with change, but not highly experienced with change done right. We were very familiar and experienced with change, but not familiar with change done right. And I wondered why that is. And what I saw was two gaps. I saw two gaps. One, in the change management space, that we have a lot of models and methods and tools to help manage change. And many of you in the talent development world are familiar with them. There's stakeholder assessments, there's readiness assessments, many, many tools. Also, we have a lot of models and methods and tools and approaches to develop leadership capabilities, overall leadership capabilities, as well as specific competencies like conflict management or communications or coaching. However, the gap I saw was that we needed to develop capability and approaches to help us develop change leadership capability, not just change management, not just leadership development, but very importantly, change leadership capabilities, because there was a dearth of tools to really help us do that. So that's the gap that CQ is intended to fill. That's the approach that Rock Valley Credit Union deployed, and that is what we'll be learning more about today. So our promise to you is that the lessons learned will be ones that will discuss how you can leverage these insights as a talent development professional for the benefit of your career and for those you serve. So this is the Chinese symbol for crisis. And as you can see, it consists of two different characters. One character stands for danger and the other for opportunity. The dangers that we're experiencing as in Chicagoland and as a global community right now are obvious. What's not so obvious is that any change or any crisis also contains opportunity. To me, it's not either or, it's both and. And as I said, I started my business in 1989 during a recession. I created the CQ system in 2009 during a global financial meltdown. And so to me, one of the greatest opportunities in any crisis is the opportunity to learn and grow. I love a quote by Warren Buffett. He says that it's only when the tide goes out that we see who's been swimming naked. And definitely, as I've seen with clients like Rock Valley Credit Union that have proactively built an enabling foundation to lead change, they're weathering these crises far more effectively than others. However, even if you haven't, even if your organization hasn't up to this point, the crises present a great opportunity to do so. to build the ship while you're sailing it so we can all sail together towards brighter tomorrows. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Actionable tactics to do just that, regardless of where you might be on the change capability curve. As any of us know from both our personal and our professional life challenges, what doesn't destroy us makes us stronger. And these crises won't destroy us, and we will emerge stronger, both individually and collectively. So here's our agenda for a brief time together. I'm going to start off with an introduction to change intelligence, or CQ, as in, you know, your IQ. We've all heard of EQ, emotional intelligence. I'm going to talk about CQ, change intelligence, which is our approach to building change leadership capabilities. Then I'm going to turn it over to Anita, who's going to talk about how Rock Valley Credit Union proactively prepared, how starting 2 years ago, over 2 years ago now, they built leadership, team, and cultural capability to lead a bold new strategic transformation that occurred well in advance of COVID-19. So then when the pandemic struck, Rock Valley Credit Union was able to rise to the challenge, and we'll talk about how and what they achieved, their change intelligent response. And then finally, we're going to bring it home, and we're going to talk about those lessons learned and how we can not just survive, not just reactively survive or cope with, but actually thrive during challenging times. And the bottom line is to build our own, our teams, and our organizations' agility, resiliency, and change capability. So what is change intelligence, or CQ? Like I said, I created CQ to fill a gap, to fill 2 gaps, one in the change management space and one in the leadership development space. And as I say, CQ plays well with others. CQ plays well with others. Many organizations like Rock Valley Credit Union integrate it with their approach to training and development, because it adds what's often the missing ingredient on, again, not just managing or reacting to, coping with, but really leading change. So here's the definition. Change intelligence, or CQ, is the awareness of one style of leading change and the ability to adapt one style to be optimally effective across people and situations. So it's got 2 parts. So first of all, it's the awareness of our style. So what is our style? And I'm going to talk about that. And then once you become aware of your style, what's the corollary of that? The corollary is you become aware that there's other styles. You become aware that there's other styles, and you have options as a leader. And the more options you have as a leader, the more power you have. Power to lead with and for others, not over, in spite, or against others. So it's an empowering model in that way. So, and what that also entails is that when we become aware of our own style and become aware of others, the idea is that, you know, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Sometimes there's a nail in front of you, so that hammer is a very functional, adaptive tool. Sometimes you need a wrench or a micrometer or a power tool. So just like sometimes you're dealing with a COVID crisis, sometimes you're dealing with integrating a new business unit, sometimes you're dealing with upgrading a technology platform. Again, these different change challenges may require different leadership approaches, change leadership styles, and by building your change intelligence, you become aware of different styles, different options that you can deploy as a leader to engage for change. So what are those styles of leading change? Well, any response to any change or any crisis needs an effective purpose, an efficient process, and engaged people. So therefore, any change leader needs to pay attention to all 3. We need to enlighten the head, right, focusing on the purpose. We need to equip the hands, focusing on the process, and we need to engage the heart, focusing on the people. However, many of us have a preference. Many of us have a preference to lead in 1, some of us 2, some all 3 ways, but we tend to have a preference even by just a smidgen. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is I'm going to briefly describe leading from the heart first, then the head, then the hands, and I invite you to self-diagnose and see which sounds like you, so you get some actionable insights right away. Going very in depth into this model is, you know, outside the scope of this brief presentation. But I also wanted to mention that back in September of 2019, I recorded a webinar for the ATD. So if you go to the ATD Global website and search for it, you can find that webinar, in which, again, you'll learn a lot more about change intelligence basics, shall we say, in depth, and more information about diagnosing and developing your own change intelligence and some hints about teams as well. So this is just a very brief overview. Obviously, if you want more information, contact me at any time. However, all right, so those of us who lead from the heart are what I say motivating and supportive coaches. So we focus on the people and the teams that are impacted by the change. So in this time of crisis, folks who lead from the heart have been even more wanting to care and support and nurture and take care of people at a very human level. And also very concerned about the impact of the crises on our teams and our overall organizational culture, all the things that have to do with people. This is a strength-based model. Obviously, all those things are strengths: engaging, communicating, collaborating, build teams, build trust. Folks who lead more strongly from the head, what's on their radar screen, they are the big picture visionaries. They're strategic. They love to look outside about the innovations and trends and bring them back to their organization. They, through this crisis, have been very focused on what do we need to do to pivot, to adapt, so we can continue to thrive and survive and even thrive into the future. So very kind of future focused, possibility focused, much more open to kind of pivoting and adjusting to be able to achieve our mission, right? Our mission. Folks who are very strong on leading from the hands are very process oriented. Their kind of gift is figuring out how to get from here to there, from current state to future reality. So they tend to be planful, tactical, detail oriented. During this time of crisis, they've had their heads down in the trenches, giving people the tools and the training to figure out how to operate in this new reality. That's obviously a strength. We need that, you know, again, any crisis, we need to get back into basics. So those are the big three, leading from the heart, the head, the hands. And when you put them all together, you actually get 7 change leader styles, 7 change leader styles. There is an assessment that you can take, and that's what the numbers on the triangle refer to. And again, if you're interested in more information about that, just reach out to me. That was a fundamental tool that we brought to bear at Rock Valley Credit Union. But again, it's a pretty intuitive model, so you probably already have a sense of what your at least kind of strength is, leading from the heart, the head, and the hands. But taking the assessment will help you know for sure, because we all are combinations of all three. Just like we each have a heart, we each have a head, and most of us have 1 or 2 hands. We can lead in all these different ways. We have examples of when we have led in all these ways. And again, any leading through any change, any crisis needs us to bring all these different tools from our toolkit to bear to lead ourselves and others through times of crisis and through any change. So for example, both Anita and I actually are the champion style leading change. We get where the change needs to go. That's the head. We enjoy motivating and rallying people together. That's the heart. And so we champion the change. So, so again, kind of diving into the 7 styles is a little beyond the scope of the time we have today. So we're going to focus on the big 3. We're going to focus on and tell the story of Rock Valley Credit Union, especially with respect to leading the heart, the people, leading the head, the purpose, and leading the hands, the process. So again, I'll tell you how to get some more information right at the end of this webinar. And there is that longer ATD webinar that you have also that you can access. So that is, I believe, what I wanted to cover in terms of some of the CQ 101 basics. Did you think I dropped anything out, Anita, or was that pretty?
No, that was great.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Anita to talk about Rock Valley Credit Union's Change Intelligent journey.
Thank you, Barbara. It's such an exciting story for me to tell. It didn't start out exciting, though. It started out kind of bumpy. So what happened is in 2018, we had a new CEO. She was very engaged, very futuristic, just wanted to help this credit union excel in new and exciting ways. And as a credit union, as a service industry, you attract a lot of very heart-centric people. They love to serve others. They just want to go about their day, making people happy. And when you're talking about change, people get uncomfortable and they get nervous. And so we really had to approach our new strategic agenda with some awareness. And I had the great opportunity to meet Barbara in the summer of 2018. And I believe it was within 90 days of our new CEO's start time that I had the opportunity to learn about CQ. and went through a half-day training session with some other credit union leaders. And I brought it back to our CEO, and she has an HR background, training background. OD is her passion. And so I was very fortunate that she bought into the idea of understanding how change is affecting people. But even at the lowest level, people are leading change. In the service industry, our front line has to lead that change to our members. In the credit union world, we call our customers members. And so we had to help those individuals be ready to communicate change to our membership. So in the fall of 2018, our entire leadership team went through the CQ sessions with Barbara. So they learned about their own style. They learned about our new CEO's style, very visionary, high head, and a lot of high hearts, even in our leadership team. So it was just some common language that helped us gain traction with her new leadership style. And then we made a decision to bring this to our full staff. And in January of 2019, we did CQ training for our entire organization. And it was a great team building opportunity, a great exercise in helping them understand how they influence change. And the biggest thing is we walked away with some common language and some great tools, which we'll talk about later. Our CEO then took this training to our board. So we went to the board of directors and they did the assessment. It was just a great opportunity for throughout the organization there to be consistency in the way we speak and the way we understand how change is affecting people. So then fast forward to 2020 and here we are, and another huge change that was not planned by us as an organization. As you all understand, it happened to us, but how were we going to respond, and how are we still going to lead our strategic plan, and how are we going to help our people address the significant changes in the way they work, where they work, who they work with, as well as the other competing emotional challenges that were going on around them because of our circumstances. So that's kind of where we started and where we are today. And I look forward to sharing with you a few more specifics about our story. So at Rock Valley Credit Union, again, as a not-for-profit in any business model, you should have a vision, a mission, core values. And we have a vision to take the fear out of banking. Very emotional. Some people are very challenged to understand financial services and their own finances. And we have a mission, and it's a great mission, and it's 4 words: to educate, relate, serve, and grow. And there's actually a lot of heads, hands, and heart activities driven through those 4 words. But specifically, we wanted to focus on 3 key areas. And we really wanted to ramp up our technology. So we wanted to give our members and our employees some new tools. We wanted to improve our financials. As a financial institution, we were already strong, but as the new CEO had a vision of making us even stronger. And we wanted to do that through educating our staff and building the competencies within them to serve better, and as well build competencies within our membership. So those were some of our goals and strategic plans. And then we just went down more finite into the fact that how were we going to do that and make sure we were doing it through certain strategic initiatives that dealt with our membership, obviously very financial key metrics, and processes. So how are we going to make things more efficient for our members and for our staff, and address some of the challenges we had within our staff, or not even challenges as much as just wanting to help elevate them. And so through that, we made a decision to hire and promote a staff from within to be a trainer. We decided we really wanted to focus on remote services. So thank goodness we did prior to COVID. And we really had started pushing our digital services, promoting that to our members, and working on getting some of our staff working remote, as trying to get that ideal work-life balance and best places to work and things like that. and all the while focusing on gaining better market share with our members and improving our financials. So CQ helped us in a significant way. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but one of the biggest things that we had to communicate was a big change to individuals and a change to our organization. Well, as this diagram shows, at that top is the mission. I love talking mission. It gets people excited. It engages their head and their heart. But as we go down into that more individual unit, we have to get detailed. And that's the hands part that for me as a champion, I had to increasingly realize that I needed to be able to communicate. How were we going to get there? How are we going to get there as a business unit? How are we going to get there in the global vision and mission world? So this chart and CQ were so key to us as we move forward. But as Barbara always says, you have to begin with the heart. And again, as a credit union, we had a lot of hearts. And so one of the struggles that we had was getting these heart people to understand. One of our strategic initiatives ended up being closing 2 of our branches. And as you can imagine, that was going to significantly impact our membership, which actually in the long run, only about 3% of our membership were using those 2 branches. But it was the philosophy that we were closing, and we were not in a bad financial position. It was to make good business decisions. But anytime you're taking something away, it hits people in the heart. You know, did people lose their jobs? How are we going to manage things differently? And so we really had to go to that detailed level and make sure we talked with individuals on how it was going to impact them or not impact them, and how it was helping fulfill our mission. So there was just a lot of change going on, and CQ helped that, as well as charts like this that help us realize that communication has to be so integral depending on where you sit. So I hope you kind of have a vision of where we were, and CQ really helped us get to where we are today. But then the crisis hit, and it's like, wow, how can we use these fantastic tools that got us through some significant changes in 2019 and use them in 2020? And there's tools that we'll give some more examples to, and Barbara can provide more later, but everything starts with the heart. We had to make sure we were caring for and hearing and helping our employees and our members feel heard, because their financial services were changing. Everything around them was changing. We closed our lobbies. We put over 60% of our staff working from home very, very quickly. And so we needed to make sure we connected with them and nurtured them and spoke a language that would speak to their heart. But we had a hefty strategic plan. Again, that visionary CEO, we were not going to let loose on those plans that we had. And our leadership team was ready to execute. And I believe a lot of that had to do with CQ, because we knew how to have that common language when we were speaking through initiatives. And so we kept pace on our strategic initiatives. We've had financial success, which we'll show you a little bit of those numbers later. And we've been able to continue to move our strategic plan along, even amidst the crisis of how COVID has changed so much of our lives. But the biggest piece for us, and I always knew it, I'm a head and a heart person, but I knew sometimes we were lacking providing the tools or the steps, the how-to part of executing that plan. So again, this tool helped us realize we have to help people. We need to give them videos on how to do online banking. We need to give our staff the process and the policy and the procedure on how to set up a remote workstation. So we started talking through all of the steps through this crisis of how to help our members and how to help our employees be as successful as possible with these changes that were happening to them with all 3 of these communication styles, instead of just letting change happen. So I'm very grateful to share our story, and there's so much more to come. I know that.
Thank you so much, Anita. No, that was awesome. And definitely, as we always say, start with the heart. And I haven't met a leader through the crisis who's not engaging the heart much more than any time before. But you did a fantastic job reaching out to your members and the staff through, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, but throughout. It's just so wonderful to see that, even in the midst of the height of the pandemic, and it's still ongoing, obviously, that you continue to make progress on the strategic plan, very bold, ambitious strategic plan, to the extent that it's even, having done so, having blended the high tech with the high touch and been on that journey for a year and a half before the pandemic struck, how you were able to pivot so much more quickly than a lot of your competition, because you had already laid that groundwork for remote banking. And then you've done so much more than so many organizations, especially in the beginning of the crisis, when not just giving people the tools to work at home, right, or the tools to bank remotely, but also created policies around it and procedures, and really empowering training and coaching. So much more, just so much smarter about equipping the hands, more change intelligent than so many other organizations. So it's been wonderful to see that. So perhaps now I'll go back and I'll add some more detail about exactly how we got to this point and what we actually did. So what we thought we'd share, Rock Valley Credit Union's Change Intelligent learning journey. And this is kind of our overall guiding principles and overarching goals. So, we really want to focus both on building individual change leadership capability as well as collective capability. And we truly believe that building relationships get results. Relationships get results for ourselves, teams, and our members in this time of crisis or at any time. And by building this enabling foundation to lead through the changes we're experiencing today, like you saw they did through 2019 with laying the foundation for the strategic plan, it gives you the capability, as I say, looking at those actual change challenges as pop-up learning labs, right, to build capability not just for today, but also for the future. So here's a deeper dive about what we actually did together. So, and you can look at it as a talent development, but also, as you've heard from Anita, our cultural development process. So we started, as Anita said, we met back in the summer of 2018, and soon after that, we started working together with the leadership team. And we had, we did some training together. We came together as a leadership team. The first thing we did was everyone on the team took the CQ assessment, which helps them understand your strengths, overdone strengths, blind spots, and developmental opportunities for your unique change leader style. Then we created a team profile so we could see collectively what are our strengths, overdone strengths, and some gaps, which we're going to talk about. We're going to show you actually the leadership team's profile and then the CQ assessment results for everyone. So that'll be an interesting visual to walk through. And importantly, we talked about their role as leading enterprise-wide change and what that really meant. And when we show you the profile, we'll again talk more, as Anita said, about the dynamics between the new, very visionary CEO coming into a high heart culture, and then also some recognition about needing to lead the hands in new and different ways also. So importantly, not just training in the classroom, but application in the field. We know so much about the synergistic effects of not just training in the classroom, but helping people coaching people and really applying it, as I say, make it real in the field, which is, as we know, in the talent development world, where you really get the return on investment and bang for the buck. And we're going to talk about that. And as Anita said, one of the biggest change intelligence tools that they really leveraged at Rock Valley Credit Union was a communications planning tool. And we're going to show you an example of that, and how to really get strategic engagement, So often, what's the number one topic in the change management literature is overcoming resistance to change, and doing something, it feels like doing something to people, right? Instead of with and for them. And so we often focus on buy-in, right? How can we get buy-in for the changes that we're advocating, right? Executives always say, how can we get people to buy in, right? The opportunity, I believe, is focusing more on proactive build-in versus reactive buy-in, more on proactive build-in versus reactive buy-in. How can we, obviously not everybody can come together and determine the strategic direction, and yet how can we come together to give and receive feedback about it, and importantly, to bring it to life, So that was something that we talked about. Then, as Anita said, the leadership team's very visionary, wanted to bring this to all staff. And because we know our philosophy is that we're all leaders regardless of tenure, title, or role. We're all change leaders regardless of tenure, title, or role. There's way too much going on in our workplaces and our world for anyone to feel like they're a leaf blowing in the wind, or that they can't get their voice heard. And I believe that's one of the #1 failure factors of change, is that people at different levels of the organization, at different parts of the organization, different functional groups, maybe different geographies, they see landmines, they see barriers, they see speed bumps, they see things that can go wrong. But if they don't feel like they have that psychological safety to get their voice heard, which is the #1 factor of high performance teams, as we know from research by Amy Edmondson and Google, #1 factor is that feeling of psychological safety, because that's how we have all the information that we need to make sure that we're leading successful and sustainable change. So very, very critical that everyone understood their role in leading change collectively and perceive themselves as change leaders. And so we'll show you also the organizational profile that we created based on, the collective CQ assessment results. And importantly, more coaching there, especially driven by Anita and the new CEO and the different department heads on the leadership team. A lot of giving and receiving feedback about, really trying to understand in this high heart culture, really wrapping their heads around, shall we say, this new strategic direction, and how can we benefit from the high tech approach in addition to the high touch approach. What does that really mean for us? Really giving and receiving feedback about that, sharing concerns, sharing those senses of loss, and then importantly, helping people at the other side of the curve. Okay, if we're going to go in this direction, it makes sense. How can we do it? How can we do it? What do we need? What do we need to do? What do we need from you? What do you need from me? And how can we not just give the training, but the coaching, not just the tools, but the ability to really use them so we can execute together. And then finally, as Anita also talked about, she and the CEO invited me to also work with the board and talk about the board's profile compared to the leadership teams and the rest of the staff profile, which, as you're going to see, really helped provide some insight into the opportunities and the challenges of leading the strategic agenda, which was the point. How can the board be even more effective in their role of strategic oversight, and even more effective in their role of supporting the CEO and the leadership team in bringing that new strategy to life? So that is the overview of the process that we work through. And so let me now talk about some of the specific results that we had. So some more about the details of it, and then we'll get into some of the results. So here is the Rock Valley Credit Union leadership team's CQ profile, as we say. So how to read this, how to understand this, is on the left side of the screen. You see the head, heart, hand score. So based on the CQ assessment, which again is an online, brief 15-minute instrument that shows a report of your tendency to lead from the heart, head, and the hands. Again, we're all blends of all styles, so we all have a heart, head, and hand score. What you see here in this pie chart are the percentages of people on the team that scored highest, either on heart or head or hands. And you can see, again, a very high heart organization, even on the leadership team level, as we talked about. Then the pie chart on the right side is the 7 change leader styles. So the percentage who scored each of the different styles. And then what you see on the triangle itself are the exact placements of the leadership team members. And what we've chosen to do is just show you Anita's as well as the CEO's again, so we just can highlight some dynamics. And so just to point out, a lot of times when a team sees their profile, right, there's this collective aha. Now yes. We see, now we get it, right? It explains a lot of dynamics, and it explains it in a way that you can really talk about it. It's simple, right? It's simple, it's intuitive to understand, but it's powerful because it's actionable, and it's powerful because there's things you can do once you see your profile. It helps validate your strengths. Again, in this case, a very high heart organization caring about its staff, caring about its members. And it also can help you understand the sources of some of the disconnects, right? And as we say in Leading Change, and you've heard this before from Tony Alessandro, for example, that instead of the golden rule, right, focus on the platinum rule. Do unto others as they want to be done unto in Leading Change. So once you see where the CEO fell as a strong visionary, right, compared to the styles of the rest of especially the leadership team, you know, it was a aha experience. Now I know how I can adapt my style, not change my style. Nobody needs a personality transplant, but but adapt my behavior so I can give people what they need to get it, to want it, and to be able to do it, right? So add a lot more heart to the communication. And you can also see how, where sometimes you have gaps overall, collective gaps. In this case, you can see in the hands. And that's what Anita said, the champions like she and I, the opposite style is our blind spot. It tends to be what we can drop out or downplay or overlook or neglect, especially in the stress of change. And you see on the executive team, there was only one strong high hands person who happened to be the head of IT. So a real opportunity to have that more on their radar screen, put systems and structures in place to really help equip the hands, right? Because so often what looks like resistance in others is that sometimes they might get it. We might be sharing the vision and they might really get in, buy in. They might want it. We might have communicated and worked through their fears and concerns. They just might not be able to do it. And that's what this can help. So, Anita, what else would you say about the profile? Add some color maybe from your perspective.
You know, I guess a couple of things that I'd really like as OD people to understand is what a huge training opportunity this is. People like to learn for the most part about themselves, and this assessment is very quick, like she said, 15 minutes. And then when you compile the data as an organization, you create the common language, and you take some fear or finger pointing or sludge, you know, out of how you call somebody out on their strengths overused sometimes, you know. And so for us, this was a fantastic team building, because again, new CEO, 6 months within her tenure, or, you know, her time with us, 6 months, we did this, and our leadership team had an epiphany, if you will, because it's like, oh, yes, I've always saw that in, you know, Susie, and she's such a heart person, and that's a great trait in that supervisory role. That's fantastic. Now let's help her understand the how and the why, the process and the purpose behind it. And so it just created some wonderful synergy within our organization in the team building aspect, but also in the common language, and then how to execute our changes that were coming out. And we needed to execute, but we needed to be very cautious that we provided the right tools and that we touched people's heart with the story of how we were going to get there, not just the vision and wham, bam, do it. You know, it was very, very enlightening for our leadership team. And then as you go into the next slide, again, just a whole lot of knowledge that came out of that. I'll share some, and then I'll let Barbara share. So the first slide was what our entire organization, so from tellers to, I believe this includes the board. Is that correct, Barbara?
No, the all one does not include the board. Yeah.
Okay. So the all was our managers and our staff, you know, so our entire 53, 56 people that we had taken the assessment. Again, very, very high hearts. Not uncommon in a service industry, and definitely not in a credit union, because credit unions are not for profit, and we're just very mission centric. But it was nice to see we had a lot of hands as well, you know, in a compilation of our entire staff. So when we as leaders in that middle section there, as managers, are being visionary, we need to realize we got to give them the tools, you know. And then with our board of directors, and Barbara can explain this more because she worked closely with the CEO and the board, but they're visionary and they're trying to say, go forth and do visionary. And we have to help them understand what it takes to get that vision cascaded throughout the organization. So I'll let you go from there, Barbara.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the big reasons that the CEO wanted me to work with the board, was to help them see that, to help them see that she, again, being a fellow high head visionary, really wanted to move forward with a sense of urgency with the new strategic agenda, and wanted them to really understand, how in a high heart culture, sometimes just moving too fast alone, that in and of itself will create resistance. Because in a high heart culture, people need what I call soak time, SOAK. They need time to really process how this is going to impact themselves, others, the members, and understand that. And so she wanted the board of directors to understand why we were taking the approach and the pace that the organization was in implementing some of these changes, so they could be more of a support and a partner to her and her leadership team, and kind of, again, be on board with that. So that was one of the big things about working with the board of directors, and one of their biggest insights as well. Also, I love a lot of everything that Anita said, and one of the things just to really build on is that, as she said about, just the leadership team and the management team and giving and receiving feedback, one of the things that it does enable you to do is that recognize that we're all trying to leverage our strengths. We're all trying to do the right thing. We just might be doing it at cross purposes, right? The board, CEO wanting to go quicker, right? Others wanting to, again, go slower and take care of the people, the members. And it's an opportunity to, to challenge ourselves, right? And say, for example, a strength of a high heart leader or team is going to be really wanting to enable people, right? Really wanting to enable people and really take care of them and help them. However, one benefits at times from challenging oneself and saying, is caring devolving into coddling, right? Are we kind of romancing the problem? Are we, enabling maybe some dysfunctional complaining, right? Versus moving to commitment, right? I always say behind any complaint is a request. Behind any complaint is a request. And how can we kind of get under the hood with that, right? Because what looks like resistance in others is really, if we can reframe that from our enemy to our ally, it's a powerful source of information that we can use to change the only thing we can, which is ourselves, our mindsets, and our behavior. So it enables us to have that kind of give and receive that feedback that, are you enabling in a positive sense or enabling in a negative sense, right? Because we know that who mentored us, right? It's people who challenged us out of our comfort zone, saw something in us and encouraged us to step up and act in different ways and try new things, maybe fail fast and pivot and move on. That'll be very comfortable for a high head leader, right, or team. It'll be much less comfortable perhaps for a high heart leader or team, or high hands, because they're going to want to do it perfectly, very well, high quality, and that can be a challenge. So again, being able to kind of positively challenge ourselves and others, give and receive this kind of feedback. What to come from that, this is a strength-based model. We're all trying to do the right thing, but sometimes in the stress of change, we can have blinders on, right? We can go to our strengths, overdo our strengths, over-index on them. And so the opportunity is when we're getting resistance, right, to really be able to reframe that and what's under the hood with that. What's really the request under that complaint, and how can I adapt my style to give people what they need to get it, wanting to be able to do it. So that's how I would elaborate on that. So, and this is one reason that, I think this is such an instructive case as well, is because there's a database now of over 15,000 leaders at all levels in the CQ assessment database. So over 15,000 folks around the globe, different industries, different job titles, right? From, the C-suite and boards to the front line, have taken the assessment. And there's some consistency in the results and some actionable results, I think. And what the results show, perhaps not surprisingly, is that folks at the top, the senior leaders, tend to be higher head. That's probably not surprising. That's their job, vision, and strategy. Don't take that to mean that if you're not a high head change leader, that you should not aspire to the C-suite, because actually we need more heart and we need more hands at every level, and especially at that level. Again, I think to overcome the high failure rate of change, right? We can't just have people who are excited about the change and having lots of change all at once. We also need people who are really thinking about the impact on the people in the culture, right? And engaging, and also people are thinking about the impact on the process, and are we really effectively implementing and sustaining, and not, you know, again, unfunded mandates and too much change saturation, that sort of thing. So anyway, but the folks at the top tend to be on average higher head change leaders, and so again, that's probably a good thing and the right thing in general, given their role. However, folks at the top tend to be the most isolated from the impacts of the changes throughout the organization. They often see outside, they see other industries, they see other competitors in their industry, and they get the need for the change the most they want it, but they can be the most isolated from the impacts of the changes throughout the organization. As I say, what you see depends on where you sit. A CEO once said to me, Barbara, it's like we're all monkeys in a tree. We're all monkeys in the tree, and I'm the top monkey. And I look down, and what do I see? I see the smiling faces of the monkeys below me. They look up, what do they see? And he patted his bottom, right? Because what you see depends on what you say. And so often the frustration is looking down in the organization. Why don't they get it? Why don't they get it? Why don't they see the gold in what I'm giving them? Why don't they get it? Why aren't they on board? And then folks at the front lines, right? Frontline leaders, frontline employees tend to be higher heart. And they tend to seem the most resistant to change because they're the ones that have to change the most to bring it to life. And they can look up, right, and say, why don't they get it, right? It's easy to vilify senior leaders. Why don't they get it? They should see. But again, what you see depends on where you sit, and we need to tell them. Folks in the middle tend to be more balanced in their profile, a little slightly more hands. I think because, again, it's in the middle ranks that you're juggling multiple accountabilities, you're really making it happen, right? You're focusing on doing. But they're also the most squeezed because they get the edicts from above, right? Which they might not fully understand or be bought into themselves. And then they get the pushback and challenges from below, and they might not be optimally equipped to address, right? Or to speak to their squeeze. So as I always say, that what do change intelligent organizations do? Well, just like you heard from Anita and Rock Valley Credit Union, they communicate down in new and different ways. More communication, communication that doesn't just speak to the what and the why of the change, the head, right? That would engage, you know, a senior team maybe or a board, but also that speaks to the heart and the hands. So customized for the needs and concerns of different stakeholders. Also, they have feedback mechanisms up. They create that sense of psychological safety. So first of all, people feel comfortable, right? Or able to share and give them the tools to do that, right? To get their voices heard, which is one thing that the head, heart, hands language enables us to do. Like, hey, you know, I know you want to move forward. That's very high head of you. You lifted your head up to see what's happening out there. However, you need to help my hands. You need to show me exactly how to get this done, right? And I'm struggling with this, right? The common language to give and receive feedback like that. And also the systems in place, systems and structures in place. So it's not just led up to good intention, right? Because even if the senior team says, hey, we want to hear it from you, do we have those forums, right, where we're coming together as an entire organization, like you heard, or within our teams, or one-on-one with our leaders to really enable that feedback to bubble up. People tell me, you know, they say, what's the #1 change leadership capability? And I don't think it's head, heart, hands. I think it's courage. I think it's courage to give that feedback, and also a lot of times courage to hear that feedback, to actually, you know, be open to that feedback and reduce that defensiveness. So again, I think Rock Valley Credit Union is a shining example of doing exactly this, communicating down, right, in new and different ways, intentionally and proactively, and also intentionally and proactively soliciting feedback up and creating that psychological safety, and, you know, and really training and coaching people in order to be able to do that. And this is exactly something that you as a talent development professional can facilitate and foster in your organization, both the individual capability to make this happen, as well as the cultural capability to make this happen. So, you want?
I do, you know,
Yeah.
I think you've hit on that. One of the things that I keep wanting to share with training and development individuals is you have the ability to influence up and down so much of the organization. And because this creates that common language, it helps the staff find there's synergy between staff and manager, because they can say, I don't understand how, or I don't understand why. And sometimes managers then feel like they're just being difficult. Whereas when you've got this common language that CQ help, and I as the HR person would say, go back to your person's profile, find out what it says about how they lead change, and it'll help you as a manager understand how to communicate with them, or where their obstacles are, or where their fear is. And look at your own profile so that you can be transparent with that employee. And so there was a lot of coaching that was involved around how to use this as a fantastic learning and communication tool. So
yeah, thank you so much. No, I love that, because so often leaders can perceive questions as resistance. Questions can, exactly, that's right. So being able to reframe that question, right, is, oh, that person is trying to either understand or give me some feedback, or, you know, kind of reframe what sounds like resistance from enemy to ally, right? And use that as information, as you just said, Anita, to change the only thing you can, which is yourself. Now change yourself, but adapt your style, adapt your approach, adapt your communication. And that's exactly one of the tools that I know that you really resonated with a lot and really leveraged at Rock Valley Credit Union, which was this one.
Yeah. So some of these great questions were things that we used when we were getting ready to communicate our change about closing facilities. And then we went through and challenged ourselves with, are we providing answers to these questions when we went through the COVID initial crisis? So, you know, I just think this is a great slide to help people understand, start thinking of the questions, the why, what, how questions in a little bit different way, and understanding how they align with how change is affecting, or how you are leading change from the head, the hands, and the heart. And I can't say it enough, and that's probably because there's so much heart in me too, is you have to start with the heart. You have to think about it from the seat that that other person is sitting in. You know, what are they feeling? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? And how are we going to help them see the full picture? Well, the story needs to be told in multiple facets. So again, this is just one of the many tools that help you think about things a little bit differently, and how you're going to create your messaging. Because as we've said, the feedback and the dialogue, when you're trying to lead change, or when change is just happening as it is at the pace it is in 2020, you need to challenge yourself to be prepared to tell a change story, solid, and all three of these components. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and I know you leverage this a lot in multiple ways, with the strategic changes and the COVID changes. And also, so what I also recommend a lot of times that a team does, a senior team does, or team at any level, is create a first pass of this story together, some bullet points, and then invite each leader to add the heart to that skeleton. So create a skeleton together so that you are singing off the same sheet of music, right? And you have the same message, the core message, and then really add those emotionally compelling languaging, right, and that personal story. So you can, as you know, it's been said that any leader's role in a crisis also is to interpret the change of crisis, and for people, and not spin, but a rousing story, right? Kind of our hero's journey through a time of crisis, for example. Okay, so let's kind of summarize and wrap it up and talk about what we did, and also what we achieved. And so also we are Rock Valley Credit Union is and I were creating a case study by an objective third-party evaluation firm that is going to be published by the end of the year, looking at changes both in the leadership behavior. So what's some improvements that how people grew as leaders, and then also what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line ROI for investing in building change capability? What did it get in terms of the tangible results, which of course is the holy grail in the talent development world? How did you really to make the business case? So what we did, the summary of what we did was that leaders at all levels were trained in change intelligence, and that, as Anita said, gave a common language and approach to align and engage for change through the strategic plan in 2019 through the crises of 2020. This was supported by internal and external coaching, so not just training in the classroom, but also applying it in the field, and then leveraged change intelligent application tools like the communication planning tool that, simple but powerful, right? Like Anita just walked through. So what were the bottom line results in leadership capability and key metrics and in culture? What we found was, first, meaningful and measurable improvements in leading the head and leading the hand. So as you saw, leaders at all levels were already pretty strong in leading the heart. And what especially the survey results showed was that the heart stayed strong, but the biggest improvements in leadership capability were around how leaders were able to, align and focus people on the strategy and the objectives, the why and the what, and also help the hands. Really got stronger about providing people the process, the plans, the tools, the training to really make it happen. So that was very exciting to see that. Also, achieved significant ROI through several ways: smoother implementation of key strategic initiatives, as Anita talked through, in a way that resulted in greater engagement and less staff member and board resistance. Again, proactive buy-in versus build-in versus reactive buy-in. And that enabling foundation then enabled them to lead through the COVID-19 crisis and emerge even stronger, both in terms of their finances and in terms of the culture, which is what Anita is going to talk to now. And the only thing I would say is I kind of hinted at this concept of pop-up learning labs. And I think it's a really powerful one, because what building that common language and that common approach enabled them to do is that not just in the classroom and not just in one-on-one coaching, but when they actually have conversations in their teams, in the, on the job, I always say that look at these real change challenges that we're experiencing as pop-up learning labs, as opportunities for leaders to develop leaders, right? To give and receive feedback, to coach each other real time, right? That I think is when you really, that's where the capability really comes in, right? People obviously, as we know, learn so much more from their leaders, right? And and up and down the organization, mutual mentoring, than they do, even from external trainers. So that's kind of a mindset that we have and an approach that Rock Valley Credit Union really embraced. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Anita to talk about the specific financial improvements that Rock Valley has seen over the past 2 years.
So we have a high heart organization and a very engaged coaching culture, but CQ helped us take that even further with our common language in coaching and mentoring. But then as a financial institution, the bottom line is it's about the bottom line. And so I'm just so proud of our entire organization, the vision that our CEO had, and the way she was able to help drive these results, as you can see, are just phenomenal. Our efficiency improvements, our net income just soaring and doing so well. Our growth and operating expense, it just, all of those are music to the ears of a board of directors, because you're so financially solid. But the way we were able to do it in so many of these initiatives, we tried to make sure that we gave them the right tools, we cast the vision, but we made sure we connected with them on why they would want to help grow the assets, why they would want to help watch the bottom line, why they would want to help our members engage in strategies that, yes, they're going to help the credit union, but they're going to help the members and help the employees. So I just think this is a key slide for financially to see the phenomenal opportunities that we've had to influence and grow our organization.
Yeah, fantastic. It's just so exciting to see these numbers, Anita. Thank you so much for sharing them. Absolutely. Okay, so we're just going to say a few concluding comments. and then kind of maybe broaden the perspective a little bit. And then we're going to tell you how to get more information if you would like it, and to contact us at any time. So many of you are probably familiar with the change curve. So leadership gurus and change gurus like Kurt Lewin and William Bridges and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talk about the phases that we as humans go through when we're unfreezing or letting go of the old. We're moving into the neutral zone, that messy, confusing in between state, as we say, the pit of productivity and the valley of despair, to hopefully emerge on the other side whole. And as one of my clients says, perhaps it's not, we never really refreeze anymore. Perhaps it's all slushy change. It's all slushy change right now, so much constant change. However, as Warren Buffett said, that it's only when the tide goes out that we see who's been swimming naked. Tragically, some organizations that have not built this enabling foundation of change leadership capability may not be able to weather these current crises that we're experiencing. But again, even if you haven't so far, crisis presents an amazing opportunity for learning and growing, and for building the ship as you're sailing it, and to emerge again even stronger than before. Like I say, maybe not just a U curve, but maybe a J curve, right? Like Rock Valley did, emerging stronger on the other side. So the term flattening the curve in terms of the virus has become part of our global lexicon. And just like we know that there are behaviors we can engage in, working remotely, wearing a mask, washing our hands, right? That can, flatten the virus curve. So there are things that we can do, right? Levers that we have as talent development professionals, as leaders at all levels, to flatten the change curve, to lessen, to reduce the time that we spend in that valley of despair and the pit of productivity, and to hasten, right, our ability to compress our ability to get through the other side even stronger than before. So we can all be, again, more smarter, more change intelligent about how we leave ourselves and others through change and crisis. So this is a great conversation starter that you can use with your learning and development team, with your executive team, and it can kind of prompt a discussion in terms of making the business case for investing in building these capabilities. So so ask yourself, and ask your teams, ask your leaders, do we train people to cope with change, to deal with the stress of the changes that they're facing, adopt a positive mindset and attitude, and build personal resilience? Do we teach people about change management models and methods and tools and processes and toolkits, and maybe how people react, and the change curve and overcoming resistance? And or do we really mentor leaders? Do we help them understand their style of leading change? Be the change that you want to see. It starts with ourselves first. And then how to foster these positive change partnerships and build teams and become change agents that are savvy in coaching and mentoring others, and really communicating, engaging, and aligning up and down the organization. If you're like most organizations, you might have said yes to some in the coping with change or managing change categories, but maybe not as much in the leading change. And I don't think it's either or. Once again, I think this is both and. I think it's critically important in these times that we help people deal with the stress and build personal resilience. And we have so many super effective change management and project management tools that we so need to get aligned and to keep pace. And I think a gap, a missing, one of the reasons that we have so much experience with change, but not as much with change done right, and we still have a high failure rate, is this gap in leading change. Which again, I believe is a mission critical capability for, in this, as we say, VUCA world, this time of massive disruption, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. So again, this is a neat thing, maybe for you to start some conversations. By the way, if you would like this deck, again, we're happy to make it available to you. So just reach out to Nita or myself, and we can provide that to you. So this is a nice one-page cheat sheet. Is change intelligence for you. Again, you as a talent development professional. What can any leader do to engage during change and through crisis? Sometimes I like to tell a joke by Rodney Dangerfield. So Rodney says that a guy goes to the doctor, and he says, "Doctor, I'm in so much pain. I broke my arm in 3 places. What do I do?" And the doctor says, "Don't go to those 3 places again." But that's what we often do. We go to those 3 places. We go to our strengths, right? and we put ourselves and others in a painful position. We put ourselves in, and that's what we do in the stress of change. We go to our strengths, and we maybe overuse our dominant tool, right? We overuse our dominant tool. That's when other people start feeling like we're pushing and forcing. That's when they push back. That's when we start feeling like we're getting resistance, and it's just exhausting. It's exhausting for all of us. So the opportunity is to turn the mirror back on ourselves, right? What can I do? How can I reframe that resistance from enemy to ally? How can I do? The only thing we can control our own mindsets and behaviors, right? And if it looks like I'm getting resistance out there, right? If people are afraid, right? You know, they're experiencing a sense of loss, like Anita originally talked about, maybe I need to engage the heart more, right? Maybe I need to build those relationships, build teams, build trust. If people are working really hard, but their efforts are misplaced, maybe I need to enlighten the head. I need to paint that picture of the what and the why of the change, that strategic direction. I need to lift my head up out of the muck and mire of today. And if they are, you know, maybe they're paralyzed, they're deer in the headlights, they can't get unstuck, they don't know what to do. Maybe I need to equip the hands. Maybe I need to give people the training, the tools, or maybe there's barriers standing in the way. Put a good person against a bad system, the system's going to win every time. Maybe there's barriers standing in the way that we need to address so people can really do it. People can really need to do it again. How can I help people get it? The head, want it, the heart, and being able to do it, the hands. That is the bottom line. So thank you so much for allowing us to speak at this very important conference at this very important time. It's more important than ever, I think, to build our leadership capabilities for leaders at all levels, including change leadership capabilities, obviously. If you would like to, you know, a copy of the case study when it's available, again, just reach out to Anita or myself. You have our contact information there. We're very accessible. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out also. Again, that, you know, my organization is sponsoring the conference, so I'm actually going to be participating in it, you know, both mornings of the conference. So, so again, I'll be very accessible real time during the conference also. Also, if you pop over to my website, changecatalyst.com, there are already loaded case studies in multiple different industries about how people, teams of organizations have built change intelligence and the results that they've achieved. You can download 2 free copies of my book. Each copy of my book includes the free copy of the assessment, and there's more information about the assessment on the website also, as well as information about the various webinars, workshops, and the CQ certification program. Again, and you know, our program, we're an ATD approved training provider, and there's also more research white papers in there about the global database and some of those implications of leading across different levels. Oh, and finally, one other resource. Again, don't forget that if you are interested in another webinar, web-based learning opportunity about change intelligence, that webinar that I recorded for the ATD back in September 2019 is another resource for you as well. So a lot of resources that you have to build your change intelligence and to learn more about how to, you know, close that gap in the change development space that CQ is intended to close as a talent development professional. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. Anita, you want to bring it home?
Yeah, I just want to share again, my closing comments to any training development person out there is that this is such a great tool that adds value to your other training components. It's not competing with, it's adding value to those. And we found the know thyself and know others, and the common language was just such a boost to our organization. And so it's an honor and a pleasure to share our story with you. I'm making myself, as Barbara has said, accessible. If there's a way that I can help any training person think about how to champion this program and how to you know, present it, whether that's to senior executive leaderships or present it to staff in small departments, I just encourage you to take the time to reach out to Barbara or I if we can at all be a resource, because it's such valuable, it's such excitement to see how you can help people overcome the fear of change, because we are living in a time, we are living in that VUCA world that says its disruption is just going to continue to come. The new norm is always change. That's the new norm. And so how can we help lead our organizations well? well, I hope you'll see that CQ has been one of the tools that can help us. So it's been a pleasure. I wish you all best, and thank you for letting me be part of this.
Thank you. And and I will just say one quick more thing, Anita, is that I love how you just said that, because it's so easy to think in this time of crisis that our heroes are first responders, right? Or frontline workers, and they are. That's very true. And everyone that's viewing this can and is a hero to their organization in terms of really helping people build their capabilities to not just survive, but to thrive through this time of crisis, and definitely at an organizational level too. So one inspiring closing comment. So thank you so much. So thank you so much, Anita. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, ATD Chicagoland. And hopefully we'll connect soon. All for now.